Good morning. I don't know about you, I saw a little snow this morning. It was really kind of cool. First time this year. My name is Jason Sikoski. I am a member of your UUFR worship team. Whether you are here in person or watching at home, it's good to be with you this morning. It's good for all of us to be together this morning. What role does this congregation play in our lives? For many of us, it's a place where we feel rooted. Just like the roots of a tree nourish the rest of the tree, this congregation helps nourish us spiritually. Just like the roots of a tree keep a tree from blowing over during storms, this congregation helps ground us during the most challenging times of our lives. As we gather this morning, let's be thankful for this shared community that nourishes us and grounds us.
Go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down. down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down. I am a pine tree on a mountainside. I am a pine tree on a mountainside. I am a pine tree on a mountainside. My roots go down. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down. I am a flower reaching toward the sun. I am a flower reaching toward the sun. I am a flower reaching toward the sun. My roots go down. I am a willow reaching through the storm. I am a willow swaying through the storm. I am a willow swaying through the storm. My roots go down. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down. I am an ancient redwood tree. I am an ancient redwood tree. I am an ancient redwood tree. My roots go down. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down. I am a mountain rising to the sky. I am a mountain rising to the sky. I am a mountain rising to the sky. My roots go down. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down, down to the earth. My roots go down.
The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. Will those of you here in person please stand as you are able for our chalice lighting? If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with us at this time. Will you please join me in reciting the words on our screen? As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to the nurturing spirits of one another and the common good of the world we share. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home. For those of you already standing, I invite you to remain standing as we sing our opening hymn, number 207, Earth Was Given as a Garden.
Tree of life and tree of
If you're visiting us for the first time this morning, I'd like to offer you a special welcome. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared world. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your own religious journey, you are welcome here. If you're visiting us for the first time in person, I invite you to stop by our welcome stand in the foyer if you haven't already done so. If you're a return visitor, you can pick up a more permanent name tag at our welcome stand. I hope all of you will notice that we have new name tags. A crew of volunteers recently replaced all of the name tags with ones with a bigger font. Yes. And they even got the stickers from my old one onto my new one. How they did that, I don't know. It's a miracle. However, if your name tag somehow got lost in this process, please stop by the welcome stand in the foyer and they can get you a new one. If you're visiting online, I invite you to fill out our visitor form at uufr.org/visitor form. If you do this, you'll start receiving our e-newsletter, The Chalice. I hope all of you read through the Chalice you received by email this Thursday about everything happening here at UUFR. Our social hour this morning will be in Founders Hall immediately after the service. We've just set up a children's corner in Founders Hall with a bunch of new toys and other fun things to play with. So parents, we hope you'll pick up your kids from Peace Hall and immediately after the service, and then join us as a family in Founders Hall. Reverend James will also be leading a newcomers gathering after this morning's service. This is a chance for recent visitors to meet with Reverend James, learn more about Unitarian Universalism and UUFR, and most importantly, to ask any questions that you may have. This will be held in the music room, which is at the end of the hallway outside of the sanctuary, just outside the doors right over here. And it will start about 10 minutes after the end of the service. Feel free to go downstairs, grab a cup of coffee, and bring it back up with you to the music room. After a long hiatus, the Wednesday night dinners are back. Our next, I got a supporter here. Our next Wednesday night dinner will be this Wednesday, March 15th, 6 p.m. in Founders Hall. This dinner will be catered by Neomond. What a fitting welcome back with Neomond. The cost is $10 per individual or $20 for a family. I don't know about you families out there, that's a pretty darn good deal for a dinner out with your family. Unlike before, you must sign up and pay online ahead of time to attend. See uufr.org or the Chalice to sign up. There will be a memorial service for UUFR member Ron Bannister on Saturday, March 18 at 3 p.m. here at UUFR. We hope many of you will join us in remembering and celebrating Ron's life. Finally, I'd like to welcome Tatiana Zibrova to UUFR this morning. She's joining us as an accompanist and guest musician this morning, and I hope you will give her a warm welcome. Thank you. I now invite you to meet and greet your neighbor. Thank you. Thank you. I invite everybody to continue your conversations in Founders Hall. I need the gong. This is great. We ought to have just like a meet and greet for service of some kind. It would be fun. I hope everybody continues your conversations at Founders Hall. Grab a cup of coffee and let's keep it rolling. This is a time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and sorrows of our community. We do this because we believe a joy shared is a joy made greater, and a sorrow shared is made easier to bear. Rupa, a visitor to our congregation, shares that she's been laid off and is feeling anxious and depressed. She asks that we keep her in our prayers. Becky Harper shares that the gerrymandering case in which she is the main plaintiff, Harper versus Hall, is being reheard by the North Carolina Supreme Court on Tuesday. There will be a rally at the North Carolina State Capitol building at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, and Becky invites you to join her there. See her in the foyer after today's service for more information. Linda Hames shares, to all who were able to attend the celebration of life of Whit Hames, either in person or online, we can't imagine a better or more suitable tribute for Whit than what we had on Saturday. Thank you for the wonderful reception and your personal messages full of love and support. Our hearts are full. As we hold these shared joys and sorrows in our hearts and reflect on the joys, sorrows, fears, and hopes of our own lives, let's be together now in stillness and in silence. I invite you to close your eyes if you wish. I invite you to breathe deeply and slowly. I invite you to open your heart to that spirit within us, between us, and all around us that calls us to a fuller, deeper, richer experience of life. After the silence, we'll sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. But for now, let us be together in stillness and silence. Our annual generosity campaign has begun at UUFR. This is the time when all of us who are members and friends of UUFR renew our pledges of fiscal commitment to UUFR for the upcoming fiscal year. All of you who are members and friends of UUFR should have received pledge materials in the mail this week, and we ask you return a pledge by mail or make a pledge online by March 31st. But here at UUFR, it's important to us that our generosity extend beyond the walls of this congregation. So once a month, instead of directly benefiting UUFR, our Sunday morning offering benefits another organization in our community. This morning, our offering will benefit the Rural Advancement Foundation International. Ray Jeffers is here to tell us more. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you and good morning. As was said, my name is Ray Jeffers and I work with RAFI. I serve as the Farmer of Color Network Director. RAFI is a nonprofit that was formed in 1990 because it really recognized our food system is deeply inequitable. And so since then, we work with a lot in the ag community, but we like to say we're a justice group that works in the agricultural space. Because it really is at everything that we do. We think about equity as well as just food systems. In fact, our mission states RAFI USA challenges the root causes of unjust food systems, supporting and advocating for economically, racially, and ecologically just farm communities. And so a lot of that work in the early 90s evolved down east with us around poultry contractors, because if you know anything about poultry contractors, they put in a lot of their own money to build the infrastructure, but they do not own their chickens, they do not own the feed that they can feed their chickens, and they put in all of that money or make that huge loan, and then they're at the mercy of those corporations. And so we really started working the rural communities, especially the ones like those that were being exploited by huge ag corporations. And so a lot of our work now, if you don't know it, roughly 85% of your meat is controlled by 4 companies. And so a lot of our work that we do now is around that corporate justice for our ag communities. And during that time when we began that work in the ag community, we noticed throughout over the 30 years that we've been doing this work that farmers of color were underrepresented. And if you know the saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And a lot of times in the spaces that we were in, we did not see farmers of color being adequately represented. And so a few years ago, we formed the Farmers of Color Network, and now all of our work is really emerged with helping BIPOC farmers. And so we have several programs at RAFI that we work around, and they include our Challenging Corporate Power, which I mentioned earlier, our Come to the Table, which is our program that works with faith communities. We have several churches and spaces of faith that we work with that may have food banks or want to do pop-up markets on Sundays and things that we work with getting farmers there so they can increase their market access. Market access being another issue that we know a lot of our small farmers and BIPOC farmers face, not having those adequate areas to sell their produce or their commodities and the things that they grow. Farm advocacy, we work with several farmers. We have a farmer hotline that is, most of our work is throughout the Southeast, U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, but we have a hotline that is across the country. I worked with someone last week that was facing foreclosure on their farm. I worked with someone several weeks ago who was facing a salmonella contamination on her farm that was killing her livestock. And so our folks that are financially stressed farmers and those that are facing foreclosure on their farms, we work with them throughout the country within our farm advocacy program. I mentioned our Farmers of Color Network, as well as our policy work. I was just in DC this week. We took over 15 farmers along with other partner organizations like us across the country to go to Congress and advocate on behalf of the Farm Bill to make sure that small farmers and BIPOC farmers are represented when they're discussing the policy changes and the things that they will be doing in this next Farm Bill, which will last for the next 5 years. And so I didn't look at what time I started, but I know I only have 3 minutes, and I think I will I will stay a little bit afterwards, hopefully to answer questions, but at my church today, we're installing our new pastor, so I will have to get back to that program as well. And taking off my RAFI hat, I serve in the North Carolina General Assembly as a representative for District 2, representing Durham and Person County, and so I could not leave without thanking Becky for the work that she's doing around gerrymandering. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. It's now time for this morning's offering. If you would like to contribute this morning, we invite you to bring it forward and put your contribution in one of our offering plates. You may also give using one of the methods on the screen. Please be generous. We have a responsive reading this morning. Connections are made slowly by Margie Piercy. Please join me. Connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. You cannot always tell by looking at what is happening. More than half a tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. Penetrate quietly as the earthworm that blows no trumpet. Fight persistently as the creeper that brings down the tree. Spread like the squash plant that overruns the garden. Gnaw in the dark and use the sun to make sugar. Weave real connections, create real nodes, build real houses. Live a life you can endure. Make life that is loving. Keep tangling and interweaving and taking more in. A thicket and bramble wilderness to outside, but to us it is interconnected with rabbit runs and burrows and layers. This is how we're going to live for a long time. Not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes.
And you the seed in the ground. If you got the sun and the rain, and you plant a little seed and put light, and you wish and you hope and you keep the wings down, you might find, oh, you might find a flower growing out, a flower growing out, a flower from the ground. If you got the sun and if you got the rain, and you plant a little seed in the old back lane, and you wish and you hope and you keep the weeds down, you might find, oh, you might find a seed growing out from the flower, from the stem, from the shoot, from the root, from the seed in the ground.
Thank you. This morning, we have two guest speakers joining us. Kristen Collins is a UUFR member, as well as on staff at the Center for Death Penalty Litigation. And Andre Smith is a longtime anti-death penalty activist. Please welcome them both to our pulpit this morning, Kristen and Andre.
Good morning. Good morning. So I'm going to start with a brief disclaimer, which is that I have a little quirk that when I speak in public, especially about something I feel strongly about, I start to cry at random moments. So I'm just going to ask you to bear with me if and when that happens today, and just ignore it. So I grew up a white girl on a cul-de-sac in suburban Pennsylvania. And my childhood coincided with the beginning of our country's age of mass incarceration and its renewed embrace of the death penalty. If I thought anything about the death penalty then, I thought of it as just a normal part of the world. Somewhere far away from me, bad people were being killed for their crimes. I would have assumed that the people imposing and carrying out those sentences knew what they were doing. Then, in 1997, I got my first real job as a newspaper reporter in Kinston. Kinston is a struggling former tobacco town in eastern North Carolina, and this was before it had the Chef and the Farmer, or even an Applebee's. We did have plenty of Bojangles, though. So Kinston is a town where many of the white people had fled after the schools desegregated, and it was 60% black. At 22 years old, I was the newest police reporter for the Kinston Free Press. Pretty quickly, I realized that while the criminal justice system had never been a factor in my life, it was perhaps the biggest force shaping many people's lives. Paging through the police reports every morning, I saw how people on the black side of town, and there was very clearly a black side of town that sat quite literally on the other side of the railroad tracks. And in this part of town, people were constantly arrested for minor offenses, many of which had more to do with poverty and segregation than with criminality. Riding along with the police, I saw how officers talked to people on the black side of town in degrading and dehumanizing ways, while they were polite and helpful on the white side of town. One day, the drug squad invited me along on a raid they'd planned. Looking back, I can't believe they invited a reporter to witness this. But they were a bunch of young guys who seemed excited to show off for me. They were dressed all in black and brandishing assault-style weapons, and I rode with them in an unmarked vehicle to the black side of town. I watched as they burst through the doors of people's homes, weapons out, demanding the people whose names were on their arrest warrants. They didn't seem to care that these were homes where families lived. I still remember women screaming and children crying. Thinking of it now, I can only call it terrorism. I can guarantee you this never would have happened on the white side of town, and not because no one there used or sold drugs. It took me a long time to process the experiences I had during my 2 years in Kinston, which included covering several death penalty trials, all of black men. But over time, that experience taught me that our society's beliefs about criminality and punishment, which often sounds so moral and clear-cut, an eye for an eye, are entirely shaped by racism and privilege. Now that I work at the Center for Death Penalty Litigation, a nonprofit law firm that represents people on North Carolina's death row, I've come to understand that what we call the criminal justice system is the primary way that racism is enforced in our society, and the death penalty sits at the top of that system. When you grant the state the right to kill, you condone every other cruelty the system might commit. You create a framework in which people actually begin to believe that a punishment like life with no possibility of parole means getting off easy. Stop for just a minute to consider this widespread belief that being locked in prison for the rest of your life is somehow not a severe punishment. Just a couple weeks ago, a man who was a member of an ethical humanist society told me that people in prison just get to relax, watch TV, and pay no price for their crime. I know people who've been locked in prison for decades. It means not getting to raise your children and often losing all contact with them. It means not holding your mother's hand when she's sick. It means no weddings or funerals, no family holidays or birthdays. It means living in an environment of cinder blocks and chains and being constantly reminded that you are worthless. It means seeing the outdoors only from a prison yard rimmed by barbed wire. It means facing the prospect of dying alone in a prison hospital. The death penalty has made us believe this is light punishment. And that is just one of many seeds of misbelief that the death penalty has planted in our society. It has created a widespread acceptance that crime is exclusively an individual failing, and that people who commit crimes can and should be thrown away. It is those beliefs that have given our country the largest prison population in the world. Those beliefs have allowed us to imprison children. In North Carolina, children are eligible for prosecution at 8 years old. Until 2021, the age was 6. I'll let you guess how many of the children our state prosecutes are white. A society that accepts this as normal has abandoned a piece of its humanity. So why am I telling you all this? Because what I want to propose to you today is that whether we accept or reject the death penalty is not about what happens to other people. It's about who we are and the kind of world we want to live in. I just want to ask you to put aside for just a second this framework that most of us are taught, which is that justice equals punishment. And imagine if we could write our own definition of justice. What if it could mean repair or restoration? What if it could mean healing? What if we could respond to crime not by shutting down with judgment and blame, thinking, what kind of monster could do that? But we could respond with genuine questions. What causes and conditions led to this? What can our community do to prevent more tragedy? What repair is possible? Who are the people who've been harmed, and what do they need to heal? That's why I brought my friend Andre Smith here today. He is the ultimate example of how this new definition of justice can heal. In 2007, Andre's 21-year-old son, Daniel, was murdered in Raleigh. Today, Andre devotes his time to ending the North Carolina death penalty and working in prisons, teaching men the skills of meditation and anger management. By the time Andre's done, I hope you are going to want to get involved in the grassroots movement to end the death penalty. We're going to have a table at coffee hour where you can come and learn more, or you can go to ncdeathpenalty.org and click Get Involved. Maybe you'll also want to join a handful of our members here at UUFR who stand vigil every Monday afternoon from 4:30 to 5:30 outside Central Prison. Do I have the time wrong? Okay. 5 to 6 outside Central Prison to remind people of the moral abomination of North Carolina's death row, which is the 5th largest in the nation. I can tell you from personal experience that we are building a joyful movement of people who believe a better world is possible. And whether or not we convince North Carolina's politicians to abolish the death penalty, I know that being part of this work has made me a little more free. It has allowed me to let go of that old punishment mindset and see that most of the things wrong in the world are better solved with love and compassion. It's allowed me to be a little less quick to judge and to recognize that we all have the potential to do harm and to repair. That's why I would suggest to you that joining the movement to end the death penalty is soul work that calls us to our wisest, kindest selves. So with that, I'm going to cede the stage to one of the wisest, kindest people I know, Andre Smith.
I'm very happy to be here today. I'm going to try my best to be mindful of time. Usually when I talk, I just shoot from the hip, all right? And I sort of meander, all right? But Jason told me about the gong we got here. So, so if I hear the gong, I know I've gone over. Yeah, so, on December 27th, 2007, that was like any other day for me and my family. We were still very much in the holiday spirit. That night, my son Daniel said, "Papa, I'm going to the club." He didn't drink, but he liked to hang out with his friends and hopefully make new friends. My wife and I were reluctant to say yes, but we knew that he really wanted to hang out with his friends. So he left and we went to bed. It was around maybe 6 or so in the morning when we were awakened to the sound of the doorbell ringing. We assumed that it was Daniel. He wanted to come back in because he left his keys and couldn't get in. Instead, there were 2 police officers there who told us that our son had been killed. It's hard to describe how that felt. The best description that I can come up with is that it felt like being punched in the gut. The news literally knocked me back. My wife dropped to the floor, and our daughter began to cry uncontrollably. The officers detailed the events of what happened. We were told that Daniel was dancing to the music on the dance floor. He loved music and dancing. This guy was on the floor, not dancing, holding his beer. Daniel accidentally bumped into him, spilling his beer onto his shirt. The guy was immediately angry, demanding an apology. Daniel didn't understand why he should apologize because it was an accident. One of the witnesses said that Daniel said, Something like, "I'll give you another shirt, but no apology." Everything seemed to be okay, and Daniel stayed at the club. At closing time, before leaving, Daniel went to the bathroom. The guy went in behind him, stabbed him several times. Daniel came stumbling out of the bathroom. He was rushed to the hospital, and he died there. Such a tragedy, such a waste of life, all over an accident, a spilled beer. My wife and I were interviewed by one of the local news channels that same day. I didn't want my son or this young man to just be another statistic, example of black on black crime. So at first I said no, but she assured us that she would be very respectful, and she was. The reporter asked a few questions and finally asked if we have any thoughts about the man who killed our son. I said that I forgive him and I have compassion for him. I don't wish for his suffering because the moment he plunged the knife into my son, he created his own suffering. Daniel was a regular kid. He was a good kid. Not perfect, but good. He had a great sense of humor, and he loved his sister, and she loved him. He loved hip-hop, and he had hopes and dreams like every kid. He had two goals in life. One was to become a musician, the other was to box in the Olympics. He could have defended himself that night, but he never made the attempt to do so. His friends nicknamed him Peace, because when there were disagreements between his friends, he would always try to calm them down. I often think if he had just apologized, maybe he would still be alive today. This is something I will never know. I'm a practicing Buddhist. Buddhism teaches love, compassion, and forgiveness. These are not simply nice words, but how we are to live our lives. Buddhism teaches that all lives are precious. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've done or how many times you've done it. Before my son's death, I volunteered in the prisons, teaching meditation and anger management to men who have also murdered others. I remember one time before my son's murder, I was asked, after teaching a class about forgiveness and compassion by a young man, "Are you saying that if someone kills my wife or my children, that I'm supposed to love him, have compassion for him, and forgive him?" I said, "Yes, that's what I'm saying. But to be honest with you, I don't know if I can do it. I just know that it's what I want to do. And I know that it's possible to have love, compassion, and forgiveness because of the many examples of people who have expressed those qualities. People like the Buddha, Jesus, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. My view is that if they can have these qualities, so can I. In fact, I told them their work was to teach us how to possess those qualities. Not too long after that, I was put in the position to choose between hate and revenge or compassion and forgiveness. I chose the latter, and I'm so happy that I did. I discovered that if one truly wants closure and wants to be happy, one must be able to forgive. Love, compassion, and forgiveness are liberating, Holding on to hate and the wish for revenge is crippling. With that in your heart, you can never move forward. You can never move on. And you can never find happiness and joy again. It's like two people would be killed. Your loved one and yourself. I went back to the prison to continue my work almost right away. If I wasn't able to forgive, I would never have been able to return. I couldn't continue to teach about the values of love and compassion if I didn't believe in myself, if I didn't believe those things myself. Going back to work, I was a GED teacher at the time, and going back to the prison was difficult, but doing so enabled me to heal. When I returned to teach the inmates, everyone had already heard the news and saw the interview on TV. I was greeted with all this love and compassion. My classes at Nash Correctional doubled or more in size. Many of them told me they needed to see the guy who could forgive a murderer. Teaching took on a whole new meaning for me, because now the teachers weren't just words. I was now living them. They became a way of being. I think that one of the reasons I could come to a place of forgiveness so quickly was because of the work that I'd already been doing in prisons. When meeting people who attend my classes for the first time, I begin with how it is the Buddhist belief that all beings are innately good, that we all have at our core Buddha nature, meaning that we all have the potential to become Buddhas, no matter who we are or what we have done. When I see them, this is what I see. I see their potential. And this is what I teach to. And it's what I try to help them realize. I believe in the potential for people to change, because I've seen change in myself. And I've seen it in these guys I work with in prison. One of my former students, Travis Boone, attended my classes for a number of years. He took the teaching seriously and he put them into practice. I always tell my students that I will continue to work with them, even when they are released back into the world, if they would like for me to. Our journey together doesn't have to end here. Travis took me up on my offer. He was a drug addict, hooked on crack. When he got out, he started using again. He called me and I said to him that this isn't the end of the road. This isn't the end of the world. It's not easy to kick a drug habit. I continued to work with him, got him to the AA program. I know it's not easy to kick a drug habit because I'm an ex-junkie myself. I've been clean since the 70s. He used once again, and I continue to work with him and believe in him. He once again enrolled in the AA program. He has now been out of prison for 10 years, and I've been clean for 10 years. He now has a successful barber practice, and I'm one of his very satisfied and happy customers. Sometimes he cuts it too short. Yeah. Yeah. He is a true example of people being able to change. They just need to know that it can happen and have someone who will be there for them, believing in their potential to change. I reached out to my killer's son once. Thankfully, he didn't get the death penalty. He was convicted of second-degree murder and will be released from prison in a few years. I wanted him to know that I forgive him and have compassion for him. I wrote to him saying that I would love to have him in one of my classes at Nash Correctional if he were to transfer there, because I would love to teach him how to control and ultimately eliminate his anger so that he would never cause another family to suffer. He wrote me back, but he was still in a very defensive mode. He didn't trust my motives, believing that I only wanted to be seen as a good guy and him as a bad one. If I could meet him and have the opportunity to talk with him, I would say this to him: I want you to be happy and not suffer. I want you to do something with your life. I want you to live and become a better human being. I believe in your capacity to do good, and I bet you already have done some good, and I know that you can do more. This is how we will create a society that is safer, a society where fewer of our children get killed. We don't do it by executing people or by labeling them convicts or giving up on them. Killing someone doesn't stop the killing. Yeah, that guy won't kill again, but someone else will. But this guy, Wallace Bass, the man who killed my son, I would love to be able to pass on these teachings that have helped me and helped so many others, help them to become a better human being. Thinking in this way doesn't just help people in prison, it helps me too. I lost my son, and not wanting the guy who killed my son to suffer is contentment for me. I'm not trying to get my son back. I know that's never going to happen. I'm not trying to seek revenge. I am content. I really thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm going to ask you to please, I think I'm preaching to the choir here. I see these signs and everything. But I'm going to ask you, if you please join us, Kristen and myself, and put an end, abolish this practice of killing people. I truly believe I am my brother's, I am my sister's keeper. I truly believe that in my heart. This is how we will prevent more children from being senselessly killed the way my son was. So if you're ambivalent about the death penalty, I hope that I've given you something to think about. And perhaps you'll be able to see that capital punishment doesn't serve us well at all. I thank you so much.
I wrote down a few words on my page: love, compassion, and forgiveness. Thank you, Kristen. Thanks, Andre. Our closing hymn this morning is number 168, One More Step. Will you please stand as you're able to sing?
Till
end this time of worship together, may we do so with ever more love for one another, ever more gratitude for this precious gift of life we share among ourselves this very day, with ever more peace in our hearts and with ever more hope for our own lives in this world we share. Amen.